Okay, so you know that feeling. You walk into a room, like maybe it's for work or it's a party at a friend's place, and you want to like really connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
make a good impression, make them remember you.
Uh-huh.
But it can be tough,
Right.
right? Sometimes it feels like you're just kind of there,
Yeah.
fading into the background.
Yeah.
And small talk that actually goes somewhere. Like
Yeah.
that feels like some kind of secret skill that some people just have and others don't.
Right. Like a superpower some were born with and others weren't.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we are diving into today.
Oh, cool.
We're going deep into this book, How to Talk to Anyone,
Yeah.
and we're pulling out the best stuff, the
Yeah.
really actionable techniques that can help you be more confident, more likable, and even influential.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part is, this isn't about being fake or playing games or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's about real, genuine connection.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about manipulation.
You know?
It's about understanding how communication works so you can build better relationships. And this book is full of practical advice, like real stuff you can use to make a difference in how you interact with people.
Okay, so let's jump right in. That crucial first impression. The book talks about this thing called the flooding smile.
Okay.
But this isn't just your average, everyday smile.
No, not at all. The flooding smile is all about a pause, a deliberate delay. You don't just smile the second you make eye contact. You hold that gaze for a moment, just a beat, and you really see the person. And then, and only then, you let that smile spread across your face, a warm, genuine smile that reaches your eyes.
So a delayed smile. Interesting. What's the reasoning there?
Well, there's some really cool research on this. It seems that when you pause for a second, it actually gives the other person's brain more time to register that your smile is sincere.
Wow.
It's like their brain has a chance to say, hey, the smile is just for me. It's not just some automatic thing. And that can actually trigger a stronger response in their brain, like a reward response.
So it feels more personal.
Yeah.
More meaningful. Now, let's stick with the eyes for a minute.
Hmm.
The book also talks about something called sticky eyes.
Ah, yes.
That sounds intense. Like, are you trying to glue your eyeballs to someone?
Uh-huh. Well, the name is definitely memorable. But sticky eyes is really about maintaining eye contact throughout a conversation, even after the other person finishes speaking. The book makes this funny analogy about warm taffy. You know how it stretches and stretches before it finally breaks?
Yeah.
It's like that. You want to really hold that eye contact before you reluctantly let it go.
Interesting. And why is that so important?
Well, it shows you're listening, of course. But it also goes deeper than that. You see, as humans, we crave connection. We want to be seen and understood. And that sustained eye contact, even for a brief moment, really taps into that. It creates a sense of trust and intimacy.
Huh. The book actually mentions a guy named Sammy who saw a huge jump in his sales after he started using this technique.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty compelling.
It is. It really shows you the power of that visual connection.
Now the book takes it even further with something called epoxy eyes. Or, like, they call them sometimes super glue eyes.
Yeah.
This sounds even more intense, like something you'd see in a high-stakes negotiation or a movie.
You're exactly right. Epoxy eyes is all about prolonged, focused eye contact. It's a power move, You see it a lot with people in authority, or when someone is trying to make a strong impression. Maybe they're emphasizing a point, asserting their dominance, or, maybe even trying to create a romantic spark.
Wow, so this is one to use strategically.
Definitely. It can be very effective, but you have to be mindful of the context.
Okay, so let's move on from the eyes to our posture.
Oh.
Now, the book has this really interesting technique called hang by your teeth.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Now, that paints quite a picture.
It does. It's a visualization exercise that instantly improves your posture. So imagine this. You're walking toward a doorway, and there's this leather bit hanging just above you. As you pass through the doorway, you throw your head back, clench down on that bit with your teeth, and let it lift you up into perfect alignment.
Okay.
Your head is high, your shoulders are back, and your torso is straight.
So it's like a physical trigger for confidence.
Exactly.
It's interesting because the book connects this idea to the Walendas, the famous tightrope walkers.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes sense. They have amazing posture.
Yeah.
And they radiate confidence.
Absolutely. The way we hold ourselves speaks volumes before we even say a word. So when you visualize that upward lift, it helps you embody that sense of pride and assurance. You project an image of someone who's self-assured and in control.
Now, the next technique is called the big baby pivot. That sounds adorable.
It is. Think about a little kid. You know how when they're really engaged with someone, they'll turn their whole body to face them. Not just their head, but their whole body.
Yeah.
That's the big baby pivot. When someone approaches you or you're acknowledging them, turn your entire body towards them. It shows that you're fully present and attentive, just like a child who's eager to connect.
So it's the opposite of like those half turns we sometimes do when we're distracted or not really interested.
Exactly. It's about giving someone your full attention, showing them that you're genuinely interested in what they have to say.
It's funny how we can learn so much from kids.
I know, right?
Okay, the next one is called Hello, Old Friend.
Okay.
Now, this feels more like a mindset shift than a specific technique.
I think that's a great way to put it. Hello, old friend is about approaching every new interaction with warmth and familiarity, as if you're greeting someone you already know and like. It's about projecting that sense of connection from the very beginning. When you act like you're meeting an old friend, your body language naturally softens your smile, becomes more genuine, and you're more likely to make a positive first impression.
So you're setting a positive emotional tone right from the start.
Right. It's like you're saying, hey, I'm happy to see you, even if you've never met the person before.
The book actually talks about how this can create a really positive vibe in a room.
It can. It's amazing how contagious that warmth and openness can be.
Okay, now let's talk about limit the fidget. I think this is something a lot of people struggle with, including myself sometimes.
It's very common, especially when we're feeling nervous.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, fidgeting, whether it's touching your face, adjusting your clothes, or playing with your hands, can actually make you seem less credible and less trustworthy.
Really?
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but true. The book mentions how trial lawyers are trained to watch for these subtle movements. They're looking for nonverbal cues that might reveal something about a person's character or state of mind.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
So the key is to be aware of those little movements and to consciously try to minimize them. The more still and composed you are, the more confident and self-assured you will appear.
Makes sense.
It takes practice, but it's worth it.
And finally, for first impressions, we have the wonderfully named Hans's horse sense.
Ah, yes.
Now, this one is named after Clever Hans, the famous horse who supposedly could do math.
Right. But as it turns out, Hans wasn't actually doing math. He was incredibly attuned to the subtle, unconscious reactions of his audience. Yeah, he would stop tapping his hoof when he sensed that the people watching him expected the right answer. So he was basically reading their body language.
That's incredible.
It is. And that's what Hans's horse sense is all about. It's about developing that same level of awareness of the other person's nonverbal cues, their facial expressions, their posture, their tone of voice. You're constantly reading those signals and adjusting your communication accordingly. It's like you're a communication detective.
I love that analogy.
It's about being present and responsive in the moment, really tuning in to what the other person is saying and how they're feeling.
Okay, so we've made a killer first impression. Now comes the part that can be even more daunting, small talk.
Oh, yeah.
But don't worry, the book has some great advice for us, starting with prosaic with passion.
Interesting name.
Right. So what's that all about?
Well, this technique emphasizes that the actual words you use to start a conversation are way less important than the energy and enthusiasm you bring to the interaction. The book says that almost any non-negative opening is fine as long as you deliver it with sincerity and warmth.
Okay.
It's about injecting passion and positivity into even the most mundane topics. Like even talking about the weather can be engaging if you do it with genuine enthusiasm.
So it's not about having some magic opening line. It's about the way you say it.
Exactly. It's your demeanor, your tone of voice, your genuine interest in connecting that really matters.
Okay, the next technique is called always wear a wetsuit.
Oh, I like that one.
Right. Sounds intriguing.
It is. Basically, what's it is anything unusual, interesting that you wear or carry with you. It could be a piece of jewelry, a unique accessory, anything that serves as a conversation starter.
I get it. So it's like a built-in icebreaker.
Exactly. It gives people an easy, non-threatening way to approach you and start a conversation.
That's smart. Instead of them having to come up with something clever out of thin air, they can just comment on your wetsuit.
Right. It takes the pressure off both of you.
And it makes you more memorable. Okay, let's talk about the dreaded where you from question.
Oh, yeah.
We've all been asked that a million times. And the answers can be so boring.
They can. But the book has a technique for this called Never the Naked City.
Never the naked city. Okay, I'm intrigued. What makes a city naked?
A naked city is just a plain, boring answer, like just saying Chicago or Los Angeles, no detail, no nothing.
Okay.
Never the naked city means you add a little something extra to your answer, something interesting or engaging.
Like what?
Well, let's say you're from Columbus, Ohio. Instead of just saying Columbus, You could mention a fun fact about the city or a reason why you like living there,
Hmm.
or even a funny story that happened to you there. It's about giving the other person something to hook onto,
Yeah.
turning a dull question into a conversation starter.
So it's about adding a little color and personality to your answer.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about introductions. The book gives some great advice on how to introduce people like the host with the most ist.
Okay.
So what's the secret to a smooth introduction?
The key is to go beyond just names and titles. Instead, try to highlight a shared interest, a hobby, a talent, something that gives the two people a reason to connect.
Right.
So instead of just saying, this is Sarah, she's a lawyer, you could say, this is Sarah, she's a brilliant lawyer, and she also makes the most amazing pottery.
Ah, I see. So you're giving them a common ground, something
Well,
to talk about.
Exactly. It makes the introduction more meaningful, and it helps spark a conversation.
Now, this next technique is called be a sleuth on their slips of the tongue.
Haha, love it.
Sounds like we need our detective hats on for this one.
Well, it's about paying attention to those little, seemingly insignificant things that people say, those offhand comments, those little slips of the tongue that might actually reveal a hidden passion or interest.
Hmm.
The book gives this great example about a woman named Mrs. Otis who casually mentioned that she was up late repotting her orchids.
Okay.
Now, to most people, that might seem like a throwaway comment, but to a good conversationalist, it's an opportunity. It's a chance to dive deeper and learn more about Mrs. Otis's love of gardening.
So you're listening for those little clues, those breadcrumbs that can lead to a more meaningful conversation.
Exactly. It shows that you're genuinely interested in the other person and that you're paying attention to what they're saying.
Okay, now this next one is so simple, but apparently very effective. It's called parroting or pleasant echo.
Okay.
And it's literally just repeating a few key words or phrases that the other person has said.
That's right. But it's not about being a parrot in a bad way. It's about showing that you're listening and that you're encouraging them to elaborate.
Give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you're talking about musicals and the other person mentions that they love Sweeney Todd. You could simply respond with Sweeney Todd with a slight upward inflection, like you're inviting them to tell you more.
Ah,
It's a subtle way to keep the conversation flowing and to show that you're genuinely interested in what they have to say.
Okay, now this next technique is called tell them about the time you.
Ooh, I like that.
And it's all about making someone feel special.
It is. It's about encouraging someone to share a story or an experience that they've told you before with a larger group.
Well, giving them an encore.
Exactly. The book tells this great anecdote about a ship's doctor and a first officer who had this amazing rescue story that they loved to tell. And whenever they were at a party, someone would always ask them to tell it again.
So it's a way of acknowledging their expertise or their unique experience.
Exactly. You're putting them in the spotlight and making them feel valued.
Okay, and finally for small talk, we have how to come across as a positive person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is all about first impressions, right?
Right. The basic idea is to avoid dumping too much negative information on someone when you're first getting to know them.
Makes sense.
I mean, it's important to be authentic, but you don't want to overwhelm someone with your problems or complaints right off the bat.
No.
It's better to focus on positive topics and create a lighthearted atmosphere. Build a foundation of good vibes before you dive into the heavier stuff.
That's a good point.
It's about putting your best foot forward.
Okay, so we've survived the first encounter and the small talk. Now let's move on to talking like a VIP.
Sounds fancy.
It is. It's all about projecting that air of importance and confidence. And the book starts by talking about this subtle sizing up that happens in social situations.
Oh, yeah. Like how we're constantly evaluating each other's social status.
Exactly. And the book points out that one way, you're being perceived as a VIP is when people don't ask you that dreaded question, what do you do?
Interesting.
Yeah. It's like they already assume that you're someone of importance, someone who's not defined by their job title.
It's a sign of respect, I guess.
I think so.
So if you're tired of being asked, what do you do? What's a better way to approach that topic?
Well, the book suggests a more elegant alternative. How do you spend most of your time?
Ooh, I like that.
Right. It's so much more open-ended. It allows for a wider range of responses. It could be about your work, your hobbies, your passions, anything that's important to you.
It shows that you're interested in the person as a whole, not just their job.
Exactly.
It's a more human approach.
Now let's talk about your verbal business card, or as the book calls it, your benefit statement.
Okay.
This is all about how you frame what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just stating your job title, you explain the benefits you provide to others.
I see.
The book gives some great examples, like a cosmetic surgeon who says, I help people regain their confidence after accidents or illnesses. Or a hairdresser who says, I make people feel beautiful and empowered.
Ah, so you're highlighting the value you bring to the world.
Exactly. You're answering that unspoken question of, so what?
Yeah.
You're making your work more meaningful and more memorable.
It's a much more compelling way to talk about what you do.
Okay, now this next technique is called your personal thesaurus.
Sounds like school.
Uh-huh. It does. But don't worry. It's not as daunting as it sounds.
Okay.
The book makes this really interesting point that the difference between an average vocabulary and a sophisticated one often comes down to just a handful of words.
Really?
Yeah, like 50 words or so. So it's not about memorizing the entire dictionary. It's about consciously choosing to use more impactful and interesting words.
Like fur.
And the book recommends a really simple exercise. Pick one word each day and try to find a more sophisticated synonym for it. Then try to use that new word in your conversations throughout the day.
That's a great idea.
It's a subtle way to elevate your communication and make you sound more articulate.
Okay, now this next technique is pure gold. It's called the "oh, I must have been boring you" technique.
Love it.
And it's all about making a graceful exit from a conversation.
Especially if you sense that the other person isn't really engaged.
Exactly. It's a self-deprecating way to end the conversation without making it awkward for anyone.
Give me an example.
Sure. So let's say you're talking to someone and you can tell they're not really listening or they keep checking their phone. You could say something like, "oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I must have been boring you with all this talk about topic."
And then you just gracefully excuse yourself.
Right. It's a polite way to bow out without hurting anyone's feelings. It shows self-awareness and respect for the other person's time.
Okay, now let's talk about communication.
Communication. Okay, that's clever.
Right, it's a play on words. It's all about putting the focus on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the simplest ways to do this is to start your sentences with you.
You mean like, "you must be really good at that," or "you seem like you know a lot about this"?
Exactly. When you use you, it makes the conversation more relevant and engaging for the other person.
Because it shows that you're thinking about them and their interests.
Exactly. It's like you're doing the mental legwork to connect your message to their world.
Makes sense.
Okay, now let's talk about the exclusive smile.
Exclusive smile. Interesting.
So this is all about being strategic with your smiles.
Okay.
When you're meeting a group of people, you want to give each person a distinct, genuine smile as you make eye contact with them.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's someone in the group that you particularly want to connect with, you might reserve a slightly warmer, more lingering smile just for them.
Ah, so you're making each person feel seen and special.
Exactly. It's a subtle way to build rapport and make a strong first impression.
I like it.
Okay, now let's move on to roll your own headlines.
Headlines, like in a newspaper.
Well, kind of. It's about ditching the cliches and coming up with your own fresh and memorable ways to express yourself.
Ah. So instead of saying, "think outside the box," you might say something like, "explore uncharted territories."
Exactly. It's about making your language more vivid and more impactful.
It's about standing out from the crowd.
Exactly.
It's about being original.
Okay, now this next technique is all about being prepared for those awkward moments.
Oh.
It's called prepare your entrance lines, face savers.
Ooh, like having a script for social situations.
Exactly. Think of it like having a few witty comebacks in your back pocket for those times when you need to diffuse a tense situation or recover from a social blunder.
Okay, I can see how that would be useful.
The book gives some great examples, like if you tell a joke and no one laughs, you could say something like, well, that one bombed, I guess I'll have to work on my material.
Uh-huh.
Or if you trip and fall, you could say, I meant to do that.
Oh,
It's my new signature move.
that's great.
It's about showing that you're not fazed by these little mishaps. You're in control and you have a sense of humor.
I like it.
Okay, now let's talk about call a spade a spade.
Straight to the point.
Exactly. It's about using clear, direct language. No jargon, no euphemisms, no beating around the bush.
Just plain English.
Exactly. It conveys confidence and authority.
It's about being assertive and respectful at the same time.
Right.
Okay, now this next technique is so important. It's the receiver's ball.
And it's all about being mindful of your audience.
Right. It's like when you're throwing a football. You have to consider where the receiver is and how fast they're running before you throw the ball.
Exactly. And in communication, you have to consider how the other person is likely to receive your message before you deliver it.
Especially if it's sensitive information.
Right. You need to adjust your tone,
Mm-hmm.
your word choice,
Mm.
your entire approach based on the other person's personality and their emotional state.
It's about being empathetic. Okay, now this next technique is for dealing with those persistent question askers. It's called the broken record.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm intrigued.
So this is about calmly and repeatedly stating your point, using the same tone of voice no matter how many times the other person tries to challenge you or get you to elaborate.
Like a broken record stuck on repeat.
Exactly. The book gives an example of a woman named Barbara who used this technique to deflect a nosy neighbor who kept asking her personal questions.
So it's about being firm but polite.
Right. You're setting boundaries without getting into an argument.
Makes sense.
Okay. And finally, we have never the naked thank you. I think I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Uh-huh. Right. This is about taking your thank yous to the next level.
By adding details.
Exactly. Instead of just saying thank you,
Yeah.
you add a specific detail about what you're grateful for and why it was meaningful to you.
Give me an example.
Sure. So instead of just thanking a waiter for bringing you your food, you might say, thank you so much for bringing this out so quickly. I'm starving.
So you're acknowledging their effort and making them feel appreciated.
Exactly. It turns a generic thank you into a genuine expression of gratitude.
Okay, and last but not least, we have talking to a celebrity.
Now, this is about staying cool and collected.
Right. Don't be that person who gushes all over them or asks for a selfie.
Exactly. If you do approach a celebrity, keep it brief and sincere. Maybe mention how much you've enjoyed their work.
But keep the focus on yourself and your own experience.
Right. Don't make it all about them.
It's about being respectful and self-aware.
Wow, that was a lot of information.
It was, but it's all good stuff, you know.
It really makes you realize how much power we have in our everyday interactions. Just by making a few small changes to the way we communicate, we can make a huge difference in the way people perceive us and the quality of our relationships.
I agree. You know, I think the key takeaway here is that communication is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned and improved with practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for all of you listening out there, I encourage you to pick one or two of these techniques that resonated with you and start practicing them in your daily life.
Yeah, see what happens. You might be surprised by the results.
And maybe start thinking about what your own what's it could be. You know, something unique and interesting that could spark a conversation and make you more memorable.
That's a great idea.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into how to talk to anyone.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep those conversations flowing.
And keep those smiles flooding.
Exactly.